All right, so moving on. Number 5. Keep your exclamation points under control. You are allowed no more than 2 or 3 per 100,000 words of prose. I like to imagine that Elmore Leonard is wagging his finger at us when he says that last one. So this is just like the first few rules. Now he's basically saying, show, don't tell. When you use an exclamation point, you are telling the reader that this sentence is exciting. And what you should be doing is showing the reader that this sentence is exciting. Like if you have, say, okay, I'm just going to make him an example. Your hero is driving her car down a highway at night and it's raining. And then a deer runs out in front of the car. Now, if we're with your character and she's driving, this is what people look like when they drive. If she's driving and then she's worried about something, maybe she's she's thinking about the villain and what she's going to do to foil the villain, and then you have a paragraph break, and then a deer ran in front of the car. That's exciting, because then the next sentence is your hero, she gasps, she pulls the wheel, maybe she skids, she meets the deer, gets caught in her headlights, and she can see the glowing green of the deer's eyes, and then she meets the deer's eyes and they experience a shared panic for a second, knowing their lives are about to end. Like if you write all that, that's just all off the top of my head. It's not great fiction or anything, but if you write that well, the excitement in that sentence or the excitement in those paragraphs are embedded in the story. What makes it exciting isn't saying, and then a deer ran in front of the car, exclamation point. You're missing it right there. I think exclamation points are fine inside of dialogue, but even then you still want to use them sparingly. And I use exclamation points mostly ironically. Like I almost never use them. I used them once in the first Lane Parrish book, Shadow Soldiers. I used an exclamation point when I was in one character's POV where he was thinking about another character and thinking about something ridiculous, and I used an exclamation point to illuminate the idea that he was mad at this other person, but I did it ironically, and I hope that came across if you've read Shadow Soldiers. Anyway, that's the first 5. And now here we go with Elmore Leonard's rules 6 through 10. Here, number 6. Never use the words suddenly or all hell broke loose. And again, just like the first 5 rules, essentially what he's saying here is show, don't tell. When you say suddenly, you're trying to indicate that things were normal and now they're not. Which, if you go back to my example from Elmore Leonard's rule number 5, where that little story I tell about the hero, she's driving her car down the freeway, or down a it would be better if it was a twisty mountain road, right? A twisty mountain road at night, and the rain is pouring, and she's crying because of something the villain did, and she's on her way to seek refuge, and then a deer runs in front of the car. Boom! We're taken out of the normalcy of that situation. Even though it's tense, it's still normal. She's just driving a car, then a deer runs in front. But if you say, she was driving, she hit the gas, and she rounded a curve. Suddenly, a deer came out in front of the car. The word suddenly is supposed to make it more exciting because it's like, bam, suddenly. But what it really does is it doesn't add anything, and it makes your sentence longer for no good reason. And then all hell broke loose is just a dumb cliche, because you're telling somebody that things were normal and now they're chaotic, where really what you could do is show, because you could say the deer jumped in front of the car and then all hell broke loose. What you should say is a deer jumped in front of the car. She skidded, her heart thumped in her chest, her palms were sweaty, which made the steering wheel slip, and she lost her grip. The car skidded towards the guardrail. She could hear the ocean below. I don't know, probably not, but what I'm demonstrating there is all hell breaking loose instead of telling you that all hell broke loose. Number 7. Use regional dialect, patois, I think that's how you say that word, sparingly. What he's doing here is the same thing, is to avoid cliches, basically. He's saying, use regional dialect patois sparingly. Now, here's an example of... So when a character... A good example of this is the word y'all, or reckon for a southern character, or for a New Yorker, use guys, or any other special kind of phrasing that characters in certain parts of the country or certain parts of the world would use. You only need a little bit of that for us to get a feeling for the character. If every other word that comes out is something that's local and is something that isn't common English for the rest of the world, people are going to have to focus to understand it. And that takes them out of the story. It slows them down and takes them out of the story and makes it more difficult. A great example of this, well, an example of breaking this rule to illustrate the rule, is the book Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell, I think. It's one of my favorite books, and so I'm a little ashamed that I can't remember the name of the author, actually. But it's one of my favorite books, and the way that this book works is it's 6 separate stories that are all possibly interconnected. They're not explicitly interconnected, but it's 6 separate stories that you're led to believe are interconnected, but not in an obvious way. But each of these stories is a different genre. Like, he has a historical fiction story, he has a cheesy 1970s thriller story, he has a futuristic story, he has a far, far dystopian futuristic story. So there's all these different stories, and each one is a completely different genre. And in the far, far dystopian story, these characters speak in a language that's kind of English, but they use all these really strange contractions and these strange other words for things. And this dialogue is so thick that the story is really hard to read. And for like the first 75% of it, you're like, okay, what is he saying here? But then eventually by the end you get it. But I think David Mitchell was trying to make a point about basically what Elmore Leonard is saying here, to avoid to use regional dialect sparingly, that it makes it hard. And I think Cloud Atlas, if you're an author, I definitely think you should read it, because I think the whole thing is a meta commentary about genre and about some of the dumb things in genre. Like in his, I'm going to go on a rant about Cloud Atlas for a second. In the historical fiction story, like the prose is really pretty and very well done, but in the 70s thriller, the prose is awkward and clunky and the dialogue is bad, and I'm pretty sure he did that on purpose to make fun of dumb thrillers. Anyway, okay, that's completely out of the way.